Before you light another candle for Nirvana and crown Kurt Cobain the holy messiah of grunge, hold up, because you might be missing the real gods of 90s music. That's right, there were bands in the 90s that were more creative, more consistent, and yeah, better musicians than Nirvana. And yet, most people totally forgot about them. But not us. We're bringing them back right now. Hit that like button if you're tired of the same overrated playlists, and smash subscribe so you don't miss the real legends of the 90s. Starting with number 5, Mother Love Bone. Most grunge stories are soaked in pain, but Mother Love Bone's tale might be the saddest of them all. Imagine a band with charm, swagger, and the kind of raw talent that could have lit up the world, and then watching it all vanish in a moment. The band came together in 1987, formed by members of the short-lived but legendary Green River, Stone Gossard, and Jeff Ament, along with the vibrant Magnetic frontman Andrew Wood. He wasn't just a singer, he was a showman, a glitter-covered poet with the voice of a rock god and the heart of a dreamer. Mother Love Bone had everything lined up: a record deal, a deadly album ready to drop, a sound that could have gone mainstream. Their future looked as bright as anyone else's in the Seattle scene, maybe even brighter. But just weeks before the release of their first album, Apple, everything came crashing down. Andrew Wood died of a heroin overdose in 1990. He was just 24. The band collapsed overnight. The album still came out, but the band never got a chance to tour, grow, or even mourn properly. Mother Love Bone was over before it ever really began. Their music lived on though. Chloe Dancer, Crown of Thorns became a cult favorite thanks to the single's movie soundtrack. Chris Cornell, Wood's roommate and friend, honored him with the creation of Temple of the Dog. And of course, Gossard and Ament moved on to form Pearl Jam, choosing a totally different frontman, Eddie Vedder. Mother Love Bone never reached the heights they were destined for, but in those few songs, you can still hear it. The magic, the promise, the heartbeat. They were a bright flame that burned out far too soon. 4. Gruntruck. Some bands burst onto the scene like fireworks, bright, loud, and impossible to miss. Others burn slow and steady, loud enough to just be noticed and strong enough to leave a lasting impression, but never quite catching that big break. Gruntruck was one of those slow burners. They had the grit, the sound, and the timing, but fate had other plans. The band formed in the early 90s, but its roots go back even further with singer Ben McMillan and drummer Norman Scott, who first played together in Skin Rock, one of Seattle's important early grunge bands. They brought along a mix of punk grit and 70s metal muscle, crafting a sound that was both heavy and raw, yet melodic enough to stand out. If that kind of sound punches your soul the right way, hit like, and if you're digging up the real roots of grunge, slam that subscribe button like it's a distortion pedal on stage. Their debut album, Inside Yours, dropped in 1990. Raw, intense, and full of promise. Songs like Not a Lot to Say grabbed attention and even scored some airplay. They weren't just another local band anymore. They were opening for Pearl Jam during the now legendary Even Flow video shoot. It was a moment, and it paid off. Gruntruck signed with Roadrunner Records, who re-released their debut before dropping their second album, Push, in 1992. The singles, Tribe, Above Me, and Crazy Love, had all the right ingredients: roaring guitars, haunting vocals, and emotional weight. But the grunge explosion was already crowded. Nirvana, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains. Gruntruck had the sound, but not the spotlight. The songs didn't catch fire the way that they should have. They toured hard, opened for big names like Screaming Trees and Alice in Chains, but it wasn't enough. By 1996, things turned bad. Legal and financial issues with the label slowed everything. They recorded a third album, but then Ben McMillan got sick. He needed time to recover, and the band paused, and the album just sat on a shelf. Ben passed away in 2008 from diabetes complications, and that third record didn't see daylight until 2017. Gruntruck had all the parts: the voice, the power, the promise. But like so many in the grunge world, their story is one of what could have been. A band on the rise that never got to finish the climb. 3. Screaming Trees. Most people know grunge as loud, angry, and all about rebellion. But Screaming Trees, they weren't just noise or rage. Their music was moody and dreamy, like stepping into a misty forest. They made songs that pulled you in, sometimes soft and haunting, other times heavy and intense. They came from Ellensburg, Washington, a quiet little town with zero music scene. But these guys didn't need big city lights to find their sound. They formed in 1984, long before grunge took over the world. While the rest of the world was still listening to hair metal, Screaming Trees was already on their 5th album by the time Nirvana exploded in 1991. When they signed up with Epic Records in the early 90s, things finally started to take off. Their albums Uncle Anesthesia and Sweet Oblivion brought them attention, especially with songs like Nearly Lost You and Bed of Roses. They even played shows with Nirvana and got featured on Singles movie soundtrack. That's how close they got to be at the top. But despite their talent and growing fan base, mainstream success mostly slipped through their fingers. Their singles didn't storm the charts, and their style was too deep, too moody for mass radio. After their 1996 album Dust, the band went on break. When they tried to come back, no label was interested. They quietly split in 2000, and in 2011 some of their last recordings were finally released. But by then, 2 original members had passed away. Frontman Mark Langan went on to have a killer solo career and worked with the Queens of the Stone Age, the Gutter Twins, and more. But Screaming Trees, they never got their second act. Number 2, Mudhoney. Coming in next, we have Mudhoney, the true godfathers of grunge who never got the fame they deserved. Before Nirvana blew up and before MTV made grunge a trend, Mudhoney was already there, making noise, breaking rules, and shaping the sound of a generation. The band was formed in 1988 by Mark Arm and Steve Turner after their previous band, Green River, split. They didn't set out to create a long-lasting band, they just wanted to make loud, raw music. Their first EP, Super Fuzz Big Muff, came out on Sub Pop Records and became a blueprint for the grunge sound. That fuzzy, distorted, chaotic noise? That was Mudhoney, and Kurt Cobain himself said that they were a huge influence on Nirvana. Their guitars sounded like buzzsaws. The vocals were half-shouted, half-broken-down confessions, and the lyrics were soaked in sarcasm and raw honesty. While other bands got polished and posed for magazine covers, Mudhoney stayed true to their garage rock roots. Their most famous song, Touch Me I'm Sick and Suck You Dry, weren't made for the radio. They were made to be screamed from a basement. And yeah, when Nirvana blew up with Nevermind, labels started throwing deals at Seattle bands including Mudhoney. They signed to a major label and dropped albums like Every Good Boy Deserves Fudge and Piece of Cake. The music was great, but the mainstream fame never really happened for them. Maybe Mudhoney was too wild, too raw, or just not pretty enough for MTV. But they didn't quit. They just kept playing, and over 30 years later, they still are. With 11 studio albums and countless tours, Mudhoney remains one of the longest-running grunge bands, second only to Pearl Jam. Their biggest fan base? The UK, where songs like Let It Slide, Halloween, and You Got It actually charted. Mudhoney might not be the most famous name in grunge, but without them, there is no grunge. No Mudhoney, no Nirvana. Remember that. Number 1, the Afghan Whigs. And now the number 1 forgotten 90s band that was straight up better than Nirvana, the Afghan Whigs. Now let's get something straight. These guys weren't just another grunge band. Their music was a wild mix of rock, soul, funk, punk, and pure emotion. Their frontman, Greg Doley, wasn't your typical rock singer. He had this dark, intense energy, like a guy spilling his secrets at 2 a.m. in a smoky bar. His voice wasn't perfect, but it was full of feeling. He didn't just sing songs, he lived them. Tracks like Debonair, Gentleman, and What Jail Is Like didn't shy away from difficult topics like shame, obsession, and self-destruction. It was deep, raw, and emotional, not just loud guitars. The Afghan Whigs started in 1988 with Big Top Halloween, but it was the 1993 Gentleman that made people really notice. Songs like What Jail Is Like and Honky's Ladder were dark, powerful, and full of raw emotion. But they didn't get huge radio play because their sound didn't fit neatly into any one box. Their music was probably too emotional for the punk crowd, too wild for the radio, but they didn't care. They made music that mattered. They split up in 2001 to focus on family and life outside of music, but thankfully they got back together in 2006 and fully reunited in 2011. Since then, they released 3 more albums with newer songs like Algiers and I'll Make You See God, proving they still got it. The Afghan Whigs may not be a household name, but for real music fans, they're legends. Which of these forgotten 90 bands do you think deserve a second chance? Drop your pick in the comments. Like and share if you felt the nostalgia. If you think Nirvana had competition, wait till you see who outshined Queen. Subscribe now so you don't miss it.